Welcome back everyone to episode 3 of this series. So in the last episode we checked on how we could create a counter block. So in this episode we will focus more on how we can create a user block where we can fetch a user block or a user from a fake backend and then actually display that on the counter or the page right here, and then have a input field where we can change the name and then update the name. So stay tuned.
Get a free full month of Skillshare and stream more than 18,000 online classes on subjects like design, business and tech. After a while and you feel like this isn't for you, you can always cancel the subscription and not pay anything. So don't wait, try it out now. The link is in the description.
So for the first thing we will do is actually create a new folder. So for this folder we will actually call it something like models. So this will contain the models for the user. So if we create a new Dart file, we call it user. So if we check this page, this will just be a simple user class, something like string name, int age, and double height. And then we'll create two constructors. So one constructor will be for this one. If you hold Alt and press insert, you will get the constructor, and you can shift and mark everything and then press enter. So there we have the constructor, and we will also create a empty constructor just because we want the initial value, and you can ignore this if you want and just check if we have data or not, but I will create this one. So the name will be something like an empty string. The age will be something like 0. And the height will be something like 0.0. There we go. And if we save this, we can close this constructor off. So for the next thing we will do is create our user block. So if we go to our blocks right there, we can create a new file, call it user_block. And for this one, we create a new class called userBlock, which implements, just as the last episode, we implement our block base. And we can import that. And we will create a variable for the user. Let's see. And we will also implement the missing override. And as I almost forgot to implement that dispose with the help of blockbase, I didn't forget that, so that's awesome. So there we have our user variable, and that will just hold the state of the user. So here we can, just as before, streams to handle the user. We will create stream controller of type user, call it user controller, of type user, something like that. We can import this Dart async, and I will just close this off so we can see more of the code. We will implement our dispose, so that will be user controller.close. Like that, and we will do it like before, so I will just speed this through to make it more fast. So we have our getter and our two getters for the out user and the in user. We will also have a controller for update the user, and I will just implement this. I don't think we will actually use it though, but I will do it anyway. So if we take the update user controller, so in this one you will actually be able to put in a whole user object instead of just a username. So next one is that we will just have one for the username. Steam handle the action on the user. And here we will have just streams to handle the input of a new name. And we'll take this and we will close that one. Like that. So for our constructor of this user block, let's do it like that. And we will have two listeners. So for these two listeners, we will have a update user controller .stream .listen. And in here we will create a method called update user. And on the next one, update name controller .listen. On this one we will have a update name. So because we don't have these two, we will actually implement them right now. So one will be void update user, and this will take in a user object. And the next one will be update name, which will just take a string of name. Like that. So both of these will be about the same. So the update user will be very simple. You will just take our user variable and set it to the user that's imported or put into the parameter of this function. And then on the in user, we can add our new user. So for the update name, it will be a lot of very, very similar. You will have your user. You just take the name variable from that user and you set that to the name that we put in. And then just the same, we take the in user and we add our user. So this will push out our user with our new name. And just to make this so it makes a bit more sense, our constructor should be above our dispose method. Something like that. And I think that should be enough to begin with. So if we go to our pages, we will start by creating our new page. So this page will be, if we can start creating one, this page will just be an example of how we can implement a user page. So the other ones are called BLoC counter page. So we'll just call this BLoC user page. Like that. We create a, don't actually need a stateful widget. We can have a stateless widget. But because we have already used stateful widgets on the other example, we'll do it again. And this will be home. What did we name the other one? I don't remember. BLoC counter page. So we will change this to BLoC user page. Like that. We import this material. And we will go to our BLoC counter. Just to make this a bit faster, we'll take all of this code. Like that. We go to the return, we put that in. So instead of block count or counter block, we will have a user block. We import that, paste that here, and we import the block provider. We can create our user block like that. And then for the input like here, and that will be out user. So we just want the name for this one. And we actually have to set this to a user. And import that. And the initial data will just be a empty user, and that's why we just created that. So now we can get the name of the user right there. We will remove, or we can comment this out, just so that we have it. And if I rerun the application, let's see what we got. And of course, we will actually have to put this in the main. So as we are providing a counter block, we'll instead provide the user block. And that probably will be imported as well. And the block counter page, we just renamed the counter to user. So we import that also. Now let's see if we can rerun it again. There we go. And as we don't, this is actually working so far because we have only set the initial data to 0, right? So now for our placeholder backend, we'll create a new folder. So this will supply our stream with a default value because we will get that, and in a couple of seconds that will be displayed on the page, right? So we create a new folder called API, and we create a new Dart file, and this will be something like database API or something. So for this thing to work, we create a new class called database API, and we create our instance as a global variable API, like that. So inside here we can create a function that returns a user. Let's call it getUser. We'll make it a async function and import the user. So here we can await future delayed. So this will just be the duration it takes for databases to get the data, like, right? So this is just for demonstration purposes. And that's what I meant with a fake database. We create a new user. Let's give the name something like Nicholas. Don't actually know how it's spelled, so that would be good. The year, the age of 12, and the height of 140. And then we'll just return the user. Like that. So this one is actually complete now. So for this one to work, we'll go to our user block. And we have our constructor. So now in the constructor, we can type in API. Get user, if I can get this working. And I couldn't, so let's check why it's not working. We have our, let's see if we can import it manually then. So type in import package, and we want to get the API, block path tutorial API, and then the database API Dart. So there we go, get user. And then because this is the constructor, we can't use await and async, so we'll use the normal, then a catch. But as this will not produce any error because we're using a simple future await or future delayed, we'll just use user or a then function. And then it will return a user. Close that off. And then we take our user variable, set it to the user variable passed in from the function. And then on the in user, we'll just add our user. So this should supply our screen with the new user data. So if we run that, you can see it take up like 1 second and the data was provided. So if we go back to the page here. So this is nothing like fancy right now. We're just displaying the name, just like the counter page. So to make this a bit more interesting, we'll create another stream builder. And we can actually remove the comments now. I don't think you actually need it. And we call this user block. like that. So if we remove the user or the initial data, you can guess what's happened. We will have an error for like 1 second, and then it will display Nicolas. So to make this a bit more reactive, we can take this return statement here. We can create an if. So if the snapshot dot has data, we can return this value, right? But if we don't have any data, else we can do whatever we want. We can return an empty container, a loading spinner, or anything like that. And that actually didn't work as I wanted it to. Let's see. If it has data, else we have to return the container, right? Or else it won't work. So that will be the same effect, because we're simply displaying a empty container, and with the user empty we'll display a empty string. And in here you can have a loading spinner, or if you want that. And that would be a lot more reactive than programming that with a flag. So we'll just keep our initial data for now. We'll create a new stream builder. And this will also be of type user. So for the stream, this will pretty much be the same. We will actually copy this to make it a bit faster. I think the tutorial is getting pretty long. And then for the builder, and we can take this also and just remove the return statement. So inside this builder, we can instead now return a text field. So for the text field, we have a onChanged, which will be the value, new name equals value. So the new name will just be the variable we will put in at the top. So for example, we can go up here, we can create a new variable called new name. We'll put that right there. Because this is not business logic anymore, this will just be for handling the UI, right? So we have the onChanged. We will set some decoration just to set the name of the label. So input decoration. We can set the label text to something like snapshot data name, like that. We will close this thing off because it's a return statement, and something like that. So if we run this, we should have a input field also, and we don't have that. So what did I miss? So I got what I was doing wrong. I didn't have this run up, so I didn't actually see the error. And that's what I was going to cover also in this tutorial. Because we have a stream can only be supplied to one stream builder at a time, or read by one place at a time, because we haven't actually, if we go to the user block, we haven't explicitly typed out that this component or block component or stream controller will be used in multiple places, right? So right now this will give an error because we're using it in multiple places, but it can only be provided in one place. So for the stream controller, the user controller, we have this user, and of the user we have a broadcast. So broadcast will simply tell us that this user controller, like in user, out user, and everything, will be used in multiple places, which it will. We will have just a title or a name displayed here, and we will have a input field at the bottom or below. So if you type broadcast, this should display both of them. So to go on with the tutorial, we can go back to our BLoC user page, and we have to do one more thing. So for the last thing we will do is simply, when we type in a name here, we can press this button to update both the name and label. So if we remove this, we go and type in user BLoC, update name, add, and then we just take the new name we created. Like that. So if you want to, you can actually also provide this new name variable in the BLoC component itself. That's also a way of doing it. I just like to do it like this because it makes a lot more sense to me if I'm creating an application. So if I rerun this, we can see that we display Nicholas. We can change this to this. We can update, and that both updates this one and this one. So there we have it. There we have a working example of the structure of getting data from a backend, providing it in our user BLoC right here in the constructor, displaying it on the page, and then having a update name. So I also created a update user, right? So this will just be the same thing, just that it will take in a user. So right here you can push in a completely new user if you log in or something like that. And that's all. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please put a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future content. And I will see you in the next tutorial.